Hey there, Shortcuts. This is Stephen for video 2 for the Shortcuts preview list this week. This is the trip hop, jazz, country, funk, blue. Well, is there any blues? Actually, I'm not sure. Maybe a more avant-garde list as well. So this price list will go out this Wednesday, July 1st at about 9:06 p.m. Sydney times, because Mailer Lite, my mailing program, takes a bit of time to churn through the emails for you all. This list is a bit quirky and a bit interesting. I'm dipping into a collection that I bought about a month ago now that has some really, truly wonderful and fascinating records. And so this is your opportunity. If you want to drop me a note to join the list, look in the description below or drop me a note, stephen@shortcutsrecords.com.au. I'm going to start in an unusual place. I suspect this is a record that not many of you know. This is Something Wicked This Way Comes by the Herbaliser. The Herbaliser centered on jQuery and Ollie Tiba, and they were a UK kind of trip hop slash, I don't know, jazz funk band, sample culture, very soundtracky. Think of kind of, I don't know, cinematic type music. And this was released in 2002. And this was their fourth studio album after Remedies, Blow Your Headphones, and Very Mercenary. And they were maybe not mainstream, but by this point I'd heard of them. A lot of people had heard of them. And I think that this makes this record really interesting. It is, I suppose, one of the few UK underground kind of jazz hip hop classics. It's really polished, it's really sample rich, lots of guest vocals, kind of dusty drums and bassy, kind of lots of turntablism, and MCs will love these tunes. I think that it's a little bit more polished than some of their earlier albums, which I like, but I think some people back in the day weren't so keen. But I really like it. 2 LPs. This is a UK press. I'm not sure if it's first press or not. I'll have to dig it out. It could well be. But it's a really, really interesting record. And if you don't know it, give it a listen. I suspect a lot of you will like it. I have gone, for the second record on the list, into completely different territory. And this, I think, is my favorite record on this particular list. This is Renegade Picker by Steve Young. And this is the Japanese first press on the RCA label. So I have a soft spot for outlaw country. And I think part of it is listening to Willie Nelson when I was growing up. I've always really liked Waylon Jennings. And there's something about those early 70s Willie Nelson records, Shotgun, and others that I really like. And this is cut from the same cloth. This is 1976, so a little bit later. And this is Steve Young. So he was born in Georgia, and he became maybe an underground kind of outlaw country guy. His most famous song is Seven Bridges Road, which was made famous initially by the Eagles. Now, he didn't hit the same way that some other songwriters did, like Jackson Browne, etc., who, was it Lion Eyes or was it Take It Easy? I can't remember. But he is more revered for his kind of rough and ready, uncompromising records. This is his fourth. I think it's his most famous. I really like it. It is almost certainly going to be loathed by most of you, but it's really cool record. It's got really great guitar playing. It reminds me, if you're a John Prine fan, I would say would be of interest to you. I love it. I think it's really cool. Give it a listen, and let me know if anyone is with me on this, or am I, am I lost in time? Miles Davis from Alton, Illinois. I've got two of his later albums here. I've got Amandla from 1989. This is, I think this came after Tutu, which was a little bit like his comeback album, but it's more. I've read some of the reviews. I've listened to a couple of these tunes. It's just not an era that of Miles that I love, but this is definitely more electronic. It's got a bit of a fusion feel. A lot of people love this. So anyway, I'm pretty sure this is a US first press, and this, if you can see, oh yeah, it's on the label. This is a sample. You can see there the sample stamp. There's a sample promo of Star People by Miles Davis. I think it's a sample of the Aussie first press. This is from 1983. And part of that same kind of ethos. So this is the man with the horn. This is kind of White We Want Miles, and this is a little bit more bluesy and a little bit more long form electric, and therefore is one of the ones that I really like, because it kind of suits my. I like it when Miles is more blues soaked and electric and funky, and that one fits the bill. Now, talking about funky, this is a pretty rare record. This has never even sold on Discogs before. This is from 1976. It's the Japanese first press of Give, Get, Take and Have. And you can see here on the wonderful Buddha Records, the vinyl is absolutely beautiful. The sleeve has got a little bit of wear though. I'm just going to show you. You can see there's some wear here and on that corner. But, Buddha Records, 1976, part of the maybe later period Curtis classic run. When you've got Curtis, Roots, Superfly, Back to the World, to me, that's a run of 4 of the greatest albums of all time. This isn't quite in that kind of class, but it's still really, really great. And it is a little bit more kind of Chicago soul, less of the kind of street level social commentary that you got on the previous two, but it's a real kind of crate digger's delight. And as I said, never been sold once on Discogs. This one is hard to find. Talking about hard to find, I am going into a genre now that I know nothing about. This is Autechre. This is Incunabula from 1993 on Warp Records. In fact, you can see here it is Warp LP 17. This is trip hop, electro, acid, techno. This was their debut album. I know in reading they became increasingly influential. It's in beautiful condition, very desirable and interesting if you're in that world. Just not something that hits the spot with me, but there you go, each to their own. I did do a headphones listen on a bus journey and I found it kind of soothing, but I do think there'll be someone out there who will love that more than me. All right. Something I do love very, very much in this collection are many, many US first and early presses of soul records from the late 60s and early 70s. And I've pulled out a special one to set the ball rolling. This is Aretha Franklin's I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. And I'm going to show you. It is the Monarch first press on the green and blue label. Again, vinyl is lovely considering age. There's obviously a few issues with the sleeve. You can see here a bit of tape at the bottom and a bit of wear on the corners, as is the way with a lot of those US records. A very fine and beautiful thing this is though. And as I said, in order to get the soul moving from this collection, I pulled out maybe one of the best. Look at that. What an album this is. This track list. Respect, Drowning My Own Tears, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, Soul Serenade, Dr. Feelgood, Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, Save Me, A Change Is Gonna Come. One of the greatest soul albums of all time, and it is without debate. This next record, there were multiple copies of this in the box, and I'd never heard of it, and I know very little about this guy. I've seen his name around, and I decided to explore, and I'm absolutely keeping the Friday Music copy, and this is a promo copy of Boz Scaggs' album from, I think it's 1969, his self-titled. This is a really nice gatefold, and I want to draw your attention to this. That is Mr. Duane Allman, and his guitar is all over this, and there is a 13-minute version of Loan Me a Dime that is the cornerstone of the second side, and it is worth buying this record just for that. It is magnificent. This whole album, though, was a real surprise to me. It was recorded, I think, primarily by the Muscle Shoals Band. So the personnel is Duane Skydog Allman, Dobrowan's guitar, Eddie Hinton, Jimmy Johnson, Boz Scaggs, Barry Beckett, Roger Hawkins, Al Lester. There's a horn section all the way through this, various different people on background vocals. Recorded at Muscle Shoals, Jackson Highway in Alabama. Recording engineer Marlon Green. This album is a delight. I had no idea how good Boz Scaggs was in those early days. This is a bit of a revelation. In the collection are a whole swathe of early US presses of George Benson as well. I pulled this one out, the George Benson Cookbook. Again, US press on the Columbia label, featuring Lonnie Smith on organ. This is from 1970, so this is pretty early on in George Benson's career, way before he became, who he did. In fact, I think that repress is 1970. I think the album itself may have been even earlier than that. This is really kind of groovy, crossover jazz soul, literally cooking organ, blues, Quicksilver guitar lines from George Benson himself. Really, really interesting record. And then that led me to another guitar record, which happened to be alongside this one in the collection. And this is a US first press of the League of Gentlemen by Robert Fripp in beautiful condition. Of course, known as the guitarist for King Crimson, but this was a guy who went off, like Brian Eno, on his own tangents and did all sorts of twitchy, angular, and kind of danceable solo music. And this record is really, really good. All right, what do we got next? I think this might be the one that a lot of people dig into. This is Burrito Deluxe by the Flying Burrito Brothers. Graham Parsons on vocal and piano, Chris Hillman on vocal, bass and mandolin, Bernie Ledden on guitar, Pete Kleinov on pedal steel, and Michael Clark on drums. This record, of course, features a couple of special appearances, but probably the most famous is Leon Russell playing piano on the Flying Burrito Brothers version of Wild Horses. Graham Parsons effectively wrote this song, and the Rolling Stones gobbled it up. This is a great record, and this is the original A&M Records first press from, I think, 68 or 70, I suppose, maybe 70, on the Monarch label. This is the Monarch pressing as well, which is the version that everyone wants. I've got a quirky vocal female record to come. So as I said, this collector liked to pick up interesting mid-90s or early 90s and 2000s presses, and this is from 2013, and this is a repress of Bridget Fontaine et Folle, which is the 1968 debut album with a completely new sleeve. Really interesting if you're into kind of French, kind of chanteuse and theatre and free jazz. This, a little bit of art pop, this will be right down your street. I first heard of this record listening to an interview with Tom York, where he was just raving about how much he loved this thing. And this audiophile pressing is really, really beautiful. And then finally, we have a US first press of this man. I had to pull out one of his records. My good friend Ivan and I had a mandate last Friday night in the factory, and we went to see a bunch of Australian musicians do cover versions of their favourite Tom Waits songs, and it was a magnificent night. And so I've pulled out the US first press of Blue Valentine. Red Shoes by the Drugstore, Christmas Card from a Hooker in Minneapolis, Romeo is Bleeding, Kentucky Avenue, Blue Valentines. It's a fantastic record. That's the US first press of that. So there we have it. We have Tom Waits to finish. We had Aretha. We had Bridget Fontaine, Robert Fripp. We've had Aretha, of course I mentioned Autechre, Curtis Mayfield, Miles Davis, all the way up to Steve Young and the Herbaliser. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, stephen@shortcutsrecords.com.au. Please leave a comment, etc., etc. Thank you all so much.